Have you ever met someone who seemed unusually sensitive, quiet, and misunderstood? Someone who did not appear arrogant or attention-seeking. Someone who seemed modest, wounded by life, deeply reflective, or constantly overlooked. At first, you may have felt protective toward them. You may have thought they simply needed more patience, more understanding, and more love. But over time, something began to feel wrong. You found yourself apologizing more often, explaining yourself more carefully, monitoring your words, your tone, and even your facial expressions. You started wondering whether your needs were selfish, whether your happiness was insensitive, whether you were somehow responsible for the other person's sadness, anger, disappointment, or withdrawal. And yet, when you tried to explain what was happening, it was difficult to find the right words. Because this person did not fit the usual image of a narcissist. They were not loud. They did not openly boast. They did not walk into every room demanding admiration. They may have appeared shy, fragile, self-sacrificing, deeply emotional, or unusually thoughtful. This is one reason covert narcissistic patterns can be so difficult to recognize. They often do not look like obvious superiority. They may look like suffering. They may look like vulnerability. They may look like modesty. They may even look like kindness. But the real question is not whether someone is quiet, sensitive, introverted, or hurt. Those qualities are not signs of narcissism. The more important question is whether vulnerability is repeatedly used to control other people, whether suffering becomes an excuse for cruelty, whether kindness becomes a debt, whether silence becomes punishment, whether emotional fragility forces everyone else to become smaller. One of the first patterns you may notice is the story of the unrecognized genius. A person with covert narcissistic traits may quietly believe that they are more intelligent, more gifted, more sensitive, or more profound than the people around them. But instead of saying, "I am better than everyone," they may say something that sounds almost self-critical. Maybe my ideas are simply too ambitious. People do not understand the way I think. I could have achieved much more if I had been given the right opportunities. This workplace rewards mediocrity. I never learned how to flatter the right people. On the surface, these statements may sound like disappointment, but underneath, there may be another message. I am exceptional. The problem is that the world is too limited to recognize me. Of course, many talented people are genuinely overlooked. Many people experience unfair workplaces, missed opportunities, discrimination, or bad luck. One frustrated comment does not reveal a personality pattern. The concern begins when the same explanation appears again and again. Every failure belongs to someone else. Every disappointment proves that other people are shallow, jealous, unintelligent, or threatened. The person remains exceptional, while the world remains responsible for everything that went wrong. Another pattern involves suffering. Some people have lived through deeply painful experiences. Trauma, neglect, loss, illness, rejection, and difficult childhoods can affect a person for many years. That pain deserves compassion. But pain does not automatically create empathy. And suffering does not give anyone the right to hurt others. In a covert narcissistic pattern, suffering may become a special status. The person may suggest that no one has ever suffered the way they have. No one can truly understand them. No one is sensitive enough. No one has the right to challenge them because their pain is different from everyone else's. When they say something cruel, they may explain, "You know what my childhood was like? You should understand why I react this way. I cannot help it. I have been through too much." And suddenly, the conversation is no longer about the person who was hurt. It becomes a conversation about the person who caused the harm. The injured partner may end up comforting the one who insulted them. They may even feel guilty for bringing up the problem at all. This is one of the most confusing parts of such a relationship. Accountability disappears beneath suffering. The person's history becomes a shield that protects them from responsibility. There may also be a profound difference between being emotionally sensitive and being emotionally empathetic. Someone can be extremely aware of their own feelings while remaining surprisingly indifferent to yours. They may notice every small change in your voice when it affects them. They may remember every time they felt criticized, ignored, or disappointed. But when you say, "I had a really difficult day," they may respond, "You think your day was difficult? At least you have a job." "I have felt worse for years, and no one cares. I do not have the energy to listen to another problem. Why does everything always have to be about you?" Within moments, your pain becomes competition. The attention shifts back to them. Your emotional experience is tolerated only when it does not remove them from the center. This can leave you feeling strangely invisible. You may listen to their feelings for hours, but when you need the same care, the conversation changes direction. You may begin telling yourself that your problems are not serious enough, that this is not the right moment, that they are already struggling, so you should remain quiet. Over time, you learn that there is room for only one person's pain. Another common pattern is passive aggression. Not every form of anger is loud. Some anger arrives as silence, coldness, heavy sighs, one-word answers, avoided eye contact, doors closed a little too forcefully, affection suddenly withdrawn. You ask, "What is wrong?" And the answer is, "Nothing." You say, "You seem upset." And they respond, "If you do not understand, there is no point in talking." Now you are expected to guess, to search through everything you said, to identify the invisible mistake, to apologize before you even know what happened. The silence continues until you become anxious enough to pursue them. And once you do, the balance of power has shifted. You are no longer discussing what they did. You are trying to repair their mood. This is why silent treatment can be so emotionally destabilizing. The problem is not simply that someone needs space. Healthy people may need time to calm down before a conversation. The difference is communication. A healthy request for space sounds like, "I am overwhelmed right now. I need an hour, but I want to talk later." Punitive silence communicates something else. "You have done something wrong. I will not tell you what it is. You must suffer until you earn your way back into connection." There may also be a quiet form of contempt. The person may present themselves as intellectual, deep, spiritual, emotionally advanced, or unusually perceptive. They may rarely insult people directly. Instead, they may use a calm tone that makes the insult harder to challenge. I am glad you can enjoy that kind of company. You see things in a much simpler way than I do. I do not expect you to understand. Not everyone is capable of that level of reflection. Most people are emotionally immature. You need simple entertainment. I need something deeper. The message is not shouted, but it is clear. I am more intelligent. I am more complex. I see more than you do. You are ordinary. You are shallow. You may begin feeling embarrassed about things you once enjoyed. Your friends, your interests, your humor, and your way of communicating may all be treated as slightly inferior. Because the contempt is delivered gently, you may struggle to call it contempt. You may wonder whether you are being too sensitive. But the result is often the same. You slowly feel smaller. Your joy may also begin to create problems. The person may not openly forbid you from going out, traveling, accepting a promotion, seeing friends, or developing your own interests. Instead, they may say, "Of course you should go. I will manage somehow. I am happy you got the promotion. I just hope the relationship survives it. Have fun with your friends. I have been feeling terrible, but do not worry about me." Technically, they have given permission. Emotionally, they have created a test. If you go, you are selfish. If you stay, you prove your love. This is how control can operate without an explicit command. The person does not need to say, "You are not allowed." They create enough guilt that you restrict yourself. You cancel the plan. You decline the opportunity. You make yourself less visible. You stop celebrating your success. You learn that your independence comes with an emotional price. This pattern may become especially clear when something good happens to you. A successful day turns into an argument. A compliment is followed by criticism. A new opportunity triggers sadness, illness, withdrawal, or accusations of neglect. Your joy seems to injure them, and eventually, you may begin hiding it. Another important pattern concerns help. People in genuine crisis often feel embarrassed about needing support. They may be grateful, apologetic, or uncomfortable receiving so much from someone else. But in a narcissistic pattern, help may be treated as an obligation. You prepare meals, make appointments, handle practical problems, listen for hours, organize the household. And instead of appreciation, you hear, "Thanks, but next time do it differently. It is nice that you finally helped. I should not have had to remind you. You are my partner. This is what you are supposed to do." Your effort becomes invisible. One small imperfection becomes the entire story. And gradually, you begin believing that no matter how much you do, it is never enough. You are not helping correctly, not quickly enough, not warmly enough, not without being asked. You start trying harder, but the standard keeps moving. There may also be a public version and a private version of the person. Outside the relationship, they may be generous, patient, helpful, polite, and admired. They may volunteer, support relatives, offer thoughtful advice, appear humble. Everyone may describe them as a wonderful person, but at home, they may be cold, dismissive, irritable, contemptuous, or emotionally unavailable. This creates another layer of isolation. When you try to explain what is happening, people may say, "That does not sound like them. They are always so kind. Maybe you expect too much. They help everyone." Now you are not only dealing with the relationship, you are also defending your own perception of reality. You begin wondering whether you are the problem. Perhaps you are too demanding, too emotional, too ungrateful, too difficult. The public image becomes evidence against your private experience. Kindness itself may be used as leverage. The person may remind you of everything they have ever done. "After everything I have done for you, this is how you treat me? No one would do as much for you as I do. Everyone thinks I am a good person. You are the only one who complains. You should be grateful I am still here." Help is no longer a gift. It becomes a contract you never knowingly signed. The payment is obedience, admiration, silence, the abandonment of your own needs. Another pattern appears when responsibility is reversed. You try to explain that you were hurt. You say, "It embarrassed me when you mocked me in front of our friends." And they respond, "I knew you would find another reason to attack me." You say, "I miss feeling close to you." And they answer, Do you have any idea what I am going through? Why does everything have to be about you? The original issue disappears. Your pain becomes evidence that you are cruel. The conversation ends with you apologizing. This can happen so often that eventually you stop bringing things up. You already know where the conversation will go. You will explain carefully. They will become wounded. You will feel guilty. Nothing will change. Sometimes, psychological language becomes part of this process. The person may know words such as trauma, boundaries, gaslighting, toxicity, emotional regulation, and narcissism. Knowing these words can be helpful, but psychological language can also be misused. Instead of helping the relationship, it may become a weapon. You are gaslighting me. Your need to talk is emotionally abusive. You do not respect my boundaries. You are projecting your trauma onto me. You have a narcissistic need to control me. I will not speak to you until you regulate yourself. The vocabulary sounds informed. It may even sound therapeutic, but the effect is to silence you. Your attempt to discuss the relationship is reframed as evidence that you are unstable, controlling, or abusive. A real boundary protects a person's well-being. It does not erase someone else's right to speak. A real boundary may sound like, I cannot continue this conversation while we are yelling. Let us return to it when we are calmer. Manipulation disguised as a boundary may sound like, you are never allowed to bring up anything that makes me uncomfortable. The difference lies in whether the boundary creates respectful communication or protects one person from all accountability. Empathy may also be selective. At the beginning of the relationship, the person may have seemed extraordinarily attentive. They listened for hours, remembered details, understood your deepest fears, told you they had never felt such a powerful connection. They may have seemed like the first person who truly saw you. But later, the empathy changes. The information you shared in moments of trust becomes useful during conflict. You once told them that you feared abandonment. Months later, during an argument, they say, "No wonder everyone eventually leaves you." This is not a random insult. It is precise. It reaches directly into a wound you once revealed because you felt safe. That is why this kind of cruelty can feel so devastating. The person knows exactly where to strike. Independence may also be punished. When you spend time with friends, develop a new interest, become more confident, or achieve something important, the relationship becomes colder. You return from a pleasant evening and find silence. Your success is minimized. Your new boundaries are described as selfishness. You are told that you have changed, that you neglect the relationship, that you care only about yourself. Affection may disappear. Again, there may be no direct prohibition. The lesson is delivered emotionally. Freedom creates punishment. Independence creates distance. Success creates conflict. Eventually, you may decide that maintaining peace is easier than living fully. And this is when you may begin walking on eggshells. You analyze every sentence before speaking. Can I tell them how I feel? Will they become offended? Am I allowed to be happy today? Can I say no? How should I ask? Am I being too demanding? Am I hurting them? Am I actually the toxic one? Your body may begin answering before your mind does. A tight stomach, trouble sleeping, tension in your shoulders, fear before returning home, guilt after seeing friends, difficulty making decisions, a growing inability to trust your own judgment. This is why the most important question is not always, is this person definitely a narcissist? That question may keep you trapped in endless analysis. You search for a label. You compare symptoms. You look for proof. But a more useful set of questions may be, How do I feel in this relationship? Can I talk openly about my needs? Are my emotions respected? Do conflicts lead to understanding? Or do they always end with me accepting the blame? Can this person admit when they have caused harm? Can they apologize without becoming the victim? Do they respect my boundaries? Can they celebrate my success? Is their help freely given, or do I receive a bill for it later? Has this pattern continued for months or years? Am I becoming less confident? More anxious? More dependent? Less like myself? These questions focus on impact rather than diagnosis. And impact matters. It is also important to distinguish a narcissistic pattern from a mental health crisis. A person who is depressed, traumatized, grieving, overwhelmed, or emotionally exhausted may become withdrawn, self-focused, irritable, or difficult to reach. That does not automatically mean narcissism. Pain can temporarily reduce a person's emotional capacity. The difference often becomes clearer when the problem is discussed. A person in crisis may still recognize that they hurt you. They may feel regret. They may apologize. They may appreciate help. They may want to improve the situation. They may accept professional support. They may say, "I know I have been difficult lately. I am struggling, but that does not make it okay for me to treat you badly." A rigid narcissistic pattern is often different. The person repeatedly blames others, treats support as something they are owed, criticizes the way help is offered, uses pain as permanent justification, avoids responsibility, responds with contempt, treats their needs as more important, sees apology as humiliation, and continues the same behavior despite repeated conversations. No single behavior proves anything. Everyone can become defensive. Everyone can say something unfair. Everyone can withdraw, become jealous, fail to show gratitude, or react badly during a difficult period. The concern is repetition, the pattern, the refusal to reflect, the way the relationship changes you over time. Covert narcissism may hide beneath the image of someone who is modest, fragile, wounded, highly sensitive, deep, self-sacrificing, or exceptionally kind. But sensitivity is not the problem. Introversion is not the problem. Needing support is not the problem. Suffering is not the problem. The problem begins when suffering becomes permission to harm, when kindness creates debt, when vulnerability creates control, when silence becomes punishment, when empathy disappears whenever attention moves to someone else, when your success creates coldness, when every conflict ends with your guilt, when humility hides superiority, when you slowly lose the right to exist as a full person. You do not need to diagnose someone in order to take your own experience seriously. You do not need a perfect label before you are allowed to protect yourself. You do not need everyone else to believe you before your pain becomes real. Pay attention to what happens inside you. Do you feel safe? Can you speak freely? Can you disagree? Can you have needs? Can you experience joy without punishment? Can you grow without being accused of abandonment? Can you say no without emotional retaliation? Can you remain yourself? A healthy relationship will not always be easy. There will be conflict, misunderstanding, disappointment, and difficult periods. But healthy relationships leave room for repair. Both people can matter. Both people can speak. Both people can be hurt. Both people can take responsibility. Both people can grow. When only one person is allowed to suffer, only one person is allowed to be right, and only one person's needs shape the relationship. The problem is not simply sensitivity. It is control. And recognizing that may be the first step toward trusting yourself again. If this reflection felt familiar, You do not have to decide today what label belongs to the other person. Start with something simpler. Ask yourself what this relationship is doing to you, and whether the version of you that exists inside it is becoming stronger, safer, and more alive, or quieter, smaller, and increasingly afraid to speak. Because sometimes the most important realization is not finally understanding the other person. It is finally believing yourself. Have you ever known someone who seemed deeply sensitive, modest, or misunderstood, but gradually made you feel guilty, smaller, or afraid to speak openly? Share your experience in the comments, without naming anyone or revealing private details. And if you value thoughtful videos about psychology, relationships, emotional manipulation, and self-trust, subscribe to the channel for more.